All right, we've got some aesthetically pleasing 49ers quarterback content today. The 49ers, they do a great job with the videography. Here's Brock Purdy at practice. This is the big floating deep ball, tight spiral, finds Demarcus Robinson. But it wasn't only Brock Purdy who made some nice passes yesterday. Although Mac Jones did not have a great overall practice, he also found his way onto the highlight reel. And this is a look at Mac throwing to the sideline. Look at that catch from Jacob Cowing. Now, we talk about Jacob Cowing because he's from Arizona. So he's from the same area as Brock Purdy, has obviously developed a nice bond with Brock. But part of developing that rapport has been training with Purdy in Jacksonville. That's where Purdy has trained over the off seasons during the course of his NFL career. It just so happens that Mac Jones is a Jacksonville native. So this year at the Jacksonville Summit during the course of the spring, it was Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Jacob Cowing, and guess who else made it out there? Ricky Pearsall. So we saw Cowing on the highlight reel, and we also saw Demarcus Robinson. And as I talk about the quarterbacks today, Demarcus Robinson's name is going to be a significant one because I'm getting veteran security blanket vibes out of him. And the 49ers really need something like that here in this 2025 season, just due to some of the uncertainty in the quarterback room. But in general, yesterday, Brock Purdy, very good. He has been sharp. I would venture to say that he's taken the next level, the next step as far as his just presence, command. He's got the money now, so you're counting on him to be one of those foundational pillars. You look out on the field and you sense who is an A-list player. I mean, Purdy was an MVP finalist 2 seasons ago, so it's not like I'm breaking news here, but I think that he's just constantly maturing further and further into that role. We talked about the first open OTA practice. Juwan Jennings was a monster that day. But there was one time where he stopped running a route over the middle of the field, and Brock Purdy got a little bit vocal. And in the past, especially in 2022, you probably wouldn't have heard that level of vocal command of what's going on. Hey, JJ, make sure you finish that route. Maybe that's just something a little bit more quiet in the huddle. But Brock Purdy, I think, has emerged now as the full-fledged leader of that 49ers offense, and his teammates are talking about it. And, a lot of times when you discuss, okay, what does leadership look like? What does the big money QB look like? What does the A-lister look like? It's a lot more nuanced than something really obvious. It can't be something really obvious or it's fake, right? So there's no smoking gun here. It's like, oh, there's Brock Purdy. All of a sudden, he's a $53 million quarterback. All of a sudden, the 49ers offense all revolves around him. It's a much more subtle emergence into that veteran linchpin position for Brock Purdy. And I think that we're seeing it in his command of the offense. I think that we're seeing it with the way that he's performed. Everything has been sharp for him over the 2 open OTA practices. He's been throwing the deep ball well. You saw that video to Demarcus Robinson. And you know what? Brock also has a new helmet. I was on the practice field yesterday. That's Clay Kubiak, 49ers offensive coordinator. Purdy swapped out helmets. I'm not much of a helmet expert, but apparently this is a new helmet that he's putting on out on the practice field. So time is changing for the 49ers, and that, of course, is Mac Jones on the right. I got a chance to write a little bit about Mac up on the San Francisco Standard. He did not have a great overall practice. You saw the out pattern to Jacob Cowing. That was one of his best plays, and that was a really nice catch from Jacob Cowing, who's been making some plays here over the course of the past couple weeks. But I thought that Mac Jones was much better the first time that we saw him on that practice field last week than he was yesterday. But anyway, let's just take a look at what Mac Jones said about his practice, because I think that there's some insight here to be gleaned into Mick Lombardi's coaching style. You see Mick there in the red hat. That is the 49ers QB coach. He actually was on the coaching staff over in New England when Mac Jones was the starting quarterback there in 2021. Mick was the receivers coach. Back in 2019, this was back when Mac was still in Alabama. Mick Lombardi was the assistant quarterbacks coach for the Patriots. That's when Tom Brady was there. But look at this honesty from Mac Jones. This is speaking right after practice. He said, "Today was a little bit shaky for me, but that's how practice goes. My goal has been every attempt should be committed to the throw." Mick Lombardi has talked to me about that, where if it's supposed to go to that guy, go in there and rip it and live with the result. That is all you can do. And this playbook is based on footwork and timing. So I just have to continue to grow in that aspect. You're kind of drinking from a water hose a little bit. But I've also played in a lot of different offenses, and this has been a great experience for me so far. And I'm looking forward to finishing strong. I think that it's important for us to appreciate the technical nuances that Shanahan's offense demands. There are many different unique things about the footwork that they ask of quarterbacks. I can give you a good example. You know, when Jimmy Garoppolo came to the 49ers in 2017, he had about a month-long crash course before he started, and he had been with the New England Patriots. I know that was a different era of Patriots football, but they didn't run any play action. They didn't run anything where when the quarterback took the snap, he took his eyes off of the defense and then had to reacquire his target. So in a standard play action, which is a fake, obviously, for those of you who are a little bit newer to the game, but it's a fake to the running back, and then you look back down the field. But in a standard play action, you have to sell that fake. So you take your eyes off of the field of play and you sell the fake handoff. And then you have to bring your eyes back to the defense. And, you know, a lot could have happened in the second or so that you were looking down. Guys have, the league moves fast. Players are incredible athletes. Guys could have really gone off their scripted route because there could have been bump and run coverage. There could be surprising defense. A lot of different things can happen in a second in the NFL. So it's really challenging to reacquire the defense visually and then be able to quickly process and then make your decision as far as where you're going to throw the football. It's tough if you're looking at the defense the whole time, which is why a lot of schemes, they're not into that play action. They're shotgun and throw. Shotgun, scan, throw. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo had run with the New England Patriots. So when he showed up to the 49ers in 2017, the big part of the crash course was, okay, this is how you reacquire the defense after a play action fake. On top of that, this goes back to Bill Walsh. There is a ton of footwork, 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, and your footwork is going to coincide with the routes. I mean, this is all really precise stuff. This is not like playing Madden where you drop back as the quarterback, you smash a button and the football goes to the receiver and everything is probably going to work out and everything will be fine, especially if it's on easy mode. Here, if you're throwing on the wrong hitch, if it's a 5-step drop instead of a 3-step drop, and the 3-step drop is what was called in the huddle, it screws up the whole play. So everything has to be in lockstep. The entire drop technique has to be perfected, and then you've got to mesh it with the eyes. So when Mac Jones is talking about this playbook is based on footwork and timing, I just have to continue to grow in that aspect. He is giving us a very front row seat into the challenges that Kyle Shanahan's system brings. But there's a reason that once quarterbacks learn this system, it can look easy. It's not easy, but they have a timing advantage over opposing defenses if they can learn these nuts and bolts and then really acquire the ability to process the decision-making within the context of the system in the right way. And that's why Mac Jones wanted to play for Kyle Shanahan. That's why I think Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan's a really good partnership, but there's also a growing pain aspect to all of this. And the 49ers say that and Mac Jones has said this too, they've spent the past couple months working on technique, working on footwork for Mac Jones. And there are going to be some highs, there are going to be some lows. And I thought yesterday's practice was trending toward the low end of the spectrum. He threw an interception on one of his high throws. There seemed to be a handful of high throws from Mac Jones yesterday. And one was over the middle, and it just oversailed the crosser. And Derek Canteen, who's a rookie cornerback who actually earned a roster spot through a tryout for the 49ers, he picked it off. And when Mac Jones says that today was a little bit shaky for me, that's one of the plays that he was talking about. But like I said the week before, there have been these flashes of, okay, Mac Jones is recognizing what's happening and this is good. And Kyle Shanahan had emphasized the week before that it's about fun for Mac Jones. If he could be enjoying himself, because I think that there were a lot of times over the course of the past several seasons from, when things went south in New England to the year in Jacksonville, which went okay for Mac Jones. I don't think it went great, but I think there were a lot of times when football became a stressful situation for him. And Shanahan said, enjoyment is really important. That rediscovering that passion for what's going on is really important. And last week when we saw him pump his fist after finding Juwan Jennings on that 20, 25-yarder downfield, a little bit further into the progression, I thought that was a really good sign that Mac was starting to process the system. And it's not going to be a linear project for the 49ers. It's going to be something where they are, he says he's drinking out of a fire hose right now or out of a water hose right now. It's not going to improve before the end of the spring program. This is by design. You flood him with as much information as possible, and then everybody leaves for a little bit over a month, and that's when he could really drill the footwork. That's when he can drill the timing. That's when he's going to be working on that on air. He's not going to be working at an 11-on-11 practice, but that's when he can focus on that technique. And then hopefully by the time the training camp rolls around, it is so drilled in Mac Jones' head that he's going to be able to pick up, without a beat during those 11-on-11 practices. But he is QB2 for the 49ers. There's no doubt about it. Brock Purdy is quarterback 1 for San Francisco. We could open up a little bit of context, what's been happening over the years since Brock Purdy and Mac Jones have both entered the league. This chart has logged snaps ever since 2021. That's the year that the 49ers picked Trey Lance. Now, Lance doesn't have enough plays to qualify here. I set it at a minimum of 1,299, which is how many dropbacks Brock Purdy has had since entering the league in 2022. But I expanded the range to 2021 since that's when Mac entered the league a year ahead of Brock Purdy. So as always, you want to be further to the right and further up in a graph like this. It again illustrates just how special Brock Purdy has been. He is the most efficient quarterback in football since 2021. The other two most efficient quarterbacks at the top are Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but there's a significant gap between Brock Purdy and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. The further to the right you are, the more your accuracy scores on the completion percentage above expectation scale. Brock Purdy, not at Joe Burrow's level. Somebody who's really good in that metric, by the way, is Geno Smith. Credit to him. But Brock Purdy, not quite at that level, but he still is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. In 2023, if we only isolated that season for Brock Purdy, I mean, he was way up here in the upper right corner. Now, for comparison, it's just so insulting that so many people will come out and say, oh, well, yeah, Mac Jones, it's like it's a very similar talent to Brock Purdy. It's like, no, it's not. Let go of your draft bias. Since Mac Jones has entered the league, he's been a guy in the bottom left. There obviously is a lot to improve for Mac Jones. The 49ers will try to get the best out of him. He is not a lost cause. Somebody like Sam Darnold was a bottom left quarterback as well before he came to the 49ers, and Sam Darnold turned into somebody that's probably here in this Jared Goff range. He's not a Purdy. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not one of these guys in the upper right, but he's definitely not a guy in the bottom left anymore. So it's the 49ers QB rehab program. That's what we call it. Brock Purdy and Mac Jones are right now, members of the program, Purdy as an instructor, Mac Jones is somebody who's trying to turn his career around the same way that Sam Darnold was able to turn his career around with the 49ers. Now, I showed this one the other day. This is another interesting piece of quarterback data that's been floating around. People are reading this one incorrectly, in my opinion. X-axis, you've got unblocked pressure rate. Y-axis, you have hit rate. So everybody's wanting to pile on to the 49ers offensive line with this one. And I would caution that whereas I've been plenty critical of the 49ers offensive line, I've been on that for about 5 years when it comes to pass protection. I don't necessarily think that this is a pass protection chart. I think we got to look at things a little bit more deeply. Unblocked pressure rate here on the x-axis, you can see Purdy's almost off the chart with unblocked pressure. He's been, this is 2023 and 2024, pressured in an unblocked fashion 9% of the time, more than any other quarterback in football. So people, the knee-jerk gut reaction is, well, I mean, of course, it's the 49ers offensive line. Look how bad they are. Unblocked pressure. This is terrible. Guys, this is the NFL. It's a numbers game. I mean, you're constantly trying to win at the numbers game. I'll tell you what's worse than unblocked pressure. It's pressure that comes even though it was blocked. Unblocked pressure in this league typically comes by design. You let a rusher in because it's 11-on-11 football, right? But if you let a rusher in without blocking him, you're theoretically going to have at least a higher chance of a numbers advantage on the back end. So somebody could be open on the back end. The biggest problem in football is when pressure comes and it was blocked. If you used one of your 11 guys to try to block somebody and you still didn't block that guy, that's when you're not going to have an advantage on the other end in all likelihood, and your quarterback is still getting pressured. So I think people are reading the notion of unblocked pressure wrong. And they're saying, oh my God, look at all this unblocked pressure that the 49ers O-line is allowing. I would argue that they're allowing a little bit more than they should be. I think that you probably would want to be a percentage or so lower. And here's my rationale for that. Look where Sam Darnold is. He's also pretty far to the right with his offensive line in terms of unblocked pressure rate. Look where Bo Nix is. Look where C.J. Stroud is. Look where Matthew Stafford is. All those guys are between 7.5% and about 8.1 or 8.2%. And Brock Purdy looks like 8.9 or 9% unblocked pressure rate. Well, it just so happens that Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos offensive line, was a top 2 unit in terms of pass block win rate last year. Sam Darnold, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line, was a top 2 unit in terms of pass block win rate last year. So if this was dependent on how good an offensive line was in pass protection, then these guys would not have these high of unblocked pressure rates. This is one of those things where we have to actually look at context before we make sweeping judgments. The one thing that stands out most to me actually about all these quarterbacks on the right, like the top 5 quarterbacks on the right, Purdy, Nix, Stroud, Darnold, Stafford, are the play callers behind them. Purdy, Kyle Shanahan. Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay. Sam Darnold last year was Kevin O'Connell. C.J. Stroud was Bobby Slowick, who used to be with the 49ers. And Bo Nix was Sean Payton. So all of those guys have, I would argue, either Shanahan tree play callers or guys who are very related to the Shanahan tree. And that would be Sean Payton. There's a lot of play calling crossover. And I think one of the fundamental tenets of those play callers is you try to win a numbers game by trusting your quarterback. This is where a lot of people get it wrong with the Shanahan system, with the McVay system. Like, oh, it's so quarterback friendly. Quarterback friendly does not mean easy for quarterbacks. Quarterback friendly means that if you're good as a quarterback, if you're able to execute some difficult things, and I'm going to list one of them right now, but if you're able to execute all those difficult things, you're going to be in position to play efficient football. One of those difficult things is being able to take unblocked pressure that comes at you right down the barrel, stare it down, maybe even absorb the hit, show some toughness, and still deliver downfield. The play caller, in a way, is challenging you in these systems to see how tough you are, how composed you are, how skilled you are, to be able to, and in some cases, how athletic you are, because you'll have to sidestep some of that pressure as well. Pocket presence is huge. The play caller is challenging you because with that bigger risk, letting some of that unblocked pressure in, comes greater reward downfield, because you're going to have a theoretical numbers advantage downfield. So the play callers for all the quarterbacks on the right over here, I would argue, come from a similar school of thought. Now, I talked about this a few days ago, and somebody said, David, that's a lot of words to say the 49ers run a lot of screen passes. And I said, you don't know what you're talking about. The 49ers, through 3 months of last season, ran the fewest screens in the NFL. That was one of my biggest criticisms of Kyle Shanahan last year. And I think that losing Christian McCaffrey so unexpectedly at the start of the year, it's not something that the 49ers saw coming. I think that losing Christian threw off their short passing game and their screen game, and they abandoned it because I guess they just didn't feel comfortable with the timing. The moving pieces weren't exactly there. But through 3 months, they threw the fewest screens in all football. Once Isaac Guerrero got going, that changed. But the unblocked pressure rate that Brock Purdy faced, which I would argue a lot of it was by schematic design, so much of that came through difficult downfield throws against the unblocked pressure and not screen passes, since they ran the fewest screens in the NFL. So let's take this for what it's worth, and let's not use it to just bash the 49ers offensive line. Let's, maybe look at this on a deeper level and say Brock Purdy really is that special. Well, I haven't even talked about the y-axis yet. That's hit rate. How often is the quarterback hit? So Purdy is pressured at an unblocked variety at the highest level in the league, yet he takes hits at a lower rate than average. He's hit 5% of the time. Guy like Kenny Pickett, 10% of the time. Zach Wilson, damn near 11% of the time. Deshaun Watson, 10% of the time. Cousins, 10% of the time. Levis, Daniel Jones. I mean, the quarterbacks here at the top, none of them are particularly good quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins got benched last year. It tells us that how many times the quarterback gets hit is pretty quarterback dependent. Like the QB's release, the QB's pocket presence, the QB's vision downfield, his processing speed, that can all cut down on the amount of times he gets hit. So I think that's what makes Jaden Daniels so special. As a rookie, getting hit, less than 2% of the time? That's awesome. So, yes, the 49ers offensive line has left something to be desired coming out of last season. I think getting Trent Williams back helps a lot for the 49ers in that regard. But the fact that Purdy got hit at a below average rate, despite the fact that they were letting unblocked pressure in at a higher rate to open stuff up downfield, that's a more in-depth look statistically at one of the things that makes Brock Purdy really special. There are so many things that the 49ers have seen with Purdy over the years to give them confidence to make him their franchise guy. And the way that he's handled the pocket, the way that he's handled those unblocked rushers from the very start against Miami, I think has been at the top of the list. Now, that's stuff that we won't be able to see here at OTAs because there are no pads on, even at training camp. Like you're not hitting the quarterback. This is all in-season stuff, but it's June 5th and I'm already ready to talk about the 49ers season at a very deep level. I did that yesterday up on the San Francisco Standard. Here's the article. The headline, Trent Williams is back at 49ers practice and already serving pancakes. The video of the pancake, I think I could probably even play it from the article. Yes, we can. I love it. You guys want me to make it bigger? Here we go. Trent Williams, a svelte Trent Williams. I think this is great for his career. He's lost a little bit of weight. And it's going to be, that was Sebastian Gutierrez who got trampled, by the way. Here, we're replaying it one more time. Blocked by Nick Zakelj, but Gutierrez there takes a little bit of a tumble. Anyway, Trent Williams at a lighter weight, this is the way that he continues playing effectively at this point of his career. He only played 10 games last year because he had that bruise in his ankle joint, sounded extremely painful. They shut him down early. Anytime that you have a guy who's been dealing with quite a few ankle injuries, and I think that's been a little bit of a theme for Trent Williams over the course of his entire 49ers tenure. I can go back to the NFC Championship game against the Rams, played it on a high ankle sprain. One of the ways that you can alleviate that is to lighten the load, right? I mean, if he's 330 pounds, maybe playing at 315 or 320, and those are just numbers I'm tossing out there. I don't know exactly where it's at for Trent Williams, but maybe with 10 or 15 fewer pounds, that's how he can stay spry at an older age. That's how he can stay healthy. And the best availability is availability. I will never doubt Trent's ability to anchor. I mean, the guy he's a specimen. I mean, he was built in a lab to be a left tackle. He's probably the most physically gifted left tackle that we've ever seen play. And now it's about stretching that career out as long as possible. He wants to play until he's 40. He said that last year after signing the contract with the 49ers. Can we just pause right now and acknowledge all of the unnecessary drama surrounding Trent Williams? There was never an issue with his contract. There's never an issue with retirement or something like that this offseason. The guy misses one practice. People decide to freak out. And then he's back at practice looking like he's in some of the best shape that we've ever seen him. He's been working hard, has cut some weight, and moving really, really well. Like I said this yesterday, Stanford's coaching staff was at the practice, and more than one Stanford staffer, when I was speaking to them, was like, number 71 can move. This is unbelievable. And at that point, I have to pinch myself a little bit. I'm a fan of football, right? I'm a fan of the game. And I have been covering this team. This is my 9th season now, covering the 49ers, covering the NFL. Throughout about half of that time, I've gotten a chance to see the most physically gifted offensive linemen in NFL history up close. And I think sometimes you take it for granted. But when you have college coaches, some of these guys with NFL backgrounds show up and say, oh my goodness, this guy's number 71. That's not normal. When they're saying that, and this guy's going to turn 37 next month, by the way. Trent turns 37 in July. It made me realize we shouldn't take for granted like the ability to watch a talent like Trent Williams out on that field. We should not take that for granted. Because I don't think the game has ever seen a physical talent like his. Somebody who's running like a 4.7, 4.8 40 coming out of Oklahoma. I covered a Trent Williams game back when I was in college. Stanford played Oklahoma in the Sun Bowl. I think it was Trent's final college game. Unfortunately, Andrew Luck had broken his finger the game before, so Andrew Luck couldn't play, but it would have been Luck against Williams. It was Richard Sherman on one side against Trent Williams. I think that Bruce Kittle was on Oklahoma's staff. So Bruce Kittle, George's dad, was a coach while Trent Williams was a player there. This is the 2009 Sun Bowl. And I think that George Kittle was at that game. I think I've talked to George about that. George would have been a high schooler back then. But still, let's sit back. Let's appreciate what's going on. Trent Williams is still playing football at a really high level, and we got to see him yesterday at that 49ers practice. Oh, this is a really, really cool video. This is also courtesy of the 49ers. We take a look at this one. And, this is a video that I think really illustrates the value of having your A-list veterans in the building. Take a look at this. That is Trent. And I'm going to rewind it one more time. And it's paused. It's Michael Williams. The two Williams. Michael, 49ers first round pick. Trent Williams in the building, already getting along with the rookie. So there's one guy who's been in the league for about 15 years and one guy who's entering the league. And, these two guys are going to work against each other in training camp. There are going to be some nice reps between Michael Williams and Trent Williams. And you know who that's going to benefit? It's going to benefit both of them. Trent's going to get to go up against some young, hungry, fresh blood in Michael Williams. And Michael is obviously going to benefit from going up against one of the greatest of all time in Trent Williams. So just from an on-field perspective, you could see how that could be tremendously beneficial for the 49ers. But from the off-field perspective, right there, they're in the weight room. They're joking around. Michael has already been shadowing Nick Bosa. Like every single thing that Nick Bosa does, Michael Williams does after. And Nick had a great quote about Michael yesterday. And Nick, we talk about economy of words. He doesn't waste words. Nick said, quote, "I've seen a lot of eagerness to learn from Michael, more so than I've probably seen from any young guy," end quote. And when Nick Bosa says stuff like that, he means it. Like, I hope you guys know, I've been around Nick for over half a decade now. I know how he communicates. The economy of words thing is very, very real. He is saying that Michael Williams is more eager to learn than any other rookie he's ever been around. Michael, it might be on the border of being annoying. He's following Nick around everywhere. Nick Martin, the rookie linebacker, is doing the same thing with Fred Warner. Well, Michael Williams, I know that he's not in the same position room as Trent Williams, but add another foundational veteran pillar to those present in the building. And Michael can look to see how Trent conducts himself. He can look to see how Trent works out, how Trent eats, and then he could face Trent, D-line against offensive line on the field. That is how you build a winning culture. It's how you stay good for a long time. And the 49ers have been good for quite a while now. So a lot of this footage and all that, the 49ers have put that out there. So we're using that from them. So we're not using our 90 seconds that we're allowed to post. But a lot of this footage that we see coming out of the 49ers facility, the most valuable components of it are the behind-the-scenes stuff like that. I just think that this is the time of the year when we're talking about culture. This is the time of the year where we're talking about youngsters getting acclimated. Even somebody like Mac Jones has to work on his technique at this time of the season. And the real football is going to be happening in about a month and a half once 49ers training camp starts at the team facility. Well, this show is brought to you by Exter. Exter is a wallet company. They do an awesome job. And, it's funny because sometimes, you get these sponsorships and you're not as familiar with their product and you try it out and you're like, okay, it's pretty cool. Sometimes the product completely fits what you need. And a lot of people made fun of me because my old wallet was so big. Now literally everything fits into this. And, here, I'm going to put the mic down. I don't have my mic stand here while I'm on the road today, but I'm going to pop my credit cards out. Check this out. 1 second. We have this. All the cards right here. Isn't that neat? All the cards pop out, put them back in. So anyway, they have a Father's Day sale going on at Exter. The wallets, they gave me a brown kind of one, leather brown, and a black one. I got the brown one today. They are 40% off this month. 10% off if you use my code Lombardi. The link is in the description, so you can go check out my promo link in the description of this video. That's Exter. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Now we go back to Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Brock came on my colleague Tim Kawakami's podcast yesterday. You can go check that out. Here's a good quote from Brock. He said, "Kyle and I have a chip on our shoulder. We're still trying to prove ourselves every single day. We are going to give everything that we have to this organization." That is from Tim's podcast. So the chip remains on the shoulder, and I would hope so. I mean, the 49ers finished 6-11 last year. I think Purdy doesn't get the respect that he deserves. There are a lot of football ignorant people out there, and I know that I've been the leader as far as the charge to make sure that Brock Purdy gets the recognition that he deserves. And it's just an objective thing. It's like, hey, I look at performance, I watch tape, I contextualize that tape with the numbers, and they, it all shows a very, very obvious picture. The picture with Brock Purdy is the simple one that here we have Trent Williams up there. That's a good video to keep on rewatching, but I need to show you some Brock Purdy numbers. I mean, this is ever since Brock Purdy joined the league. It's been the most efficient quarterback in football. People need to recognize that. And if they don't, then they're going to be left far behind in terms of the reputation of their analysis. The reason that a lot of people are not taken seriously when they analyze this game, and some people are, because it's not that hard for takes to age well. You just base them in facts, and the facts are that Brock Purdy has been at the top of the league in terms of efficiency ever since he joined a few years ago. And I think that the fact that he hadn't gotten the respect that he should be getting based on his performance, that should be reason enough. If 6-11 weren't reason enough for the 49ers, but that should be reason enough for him to maintain that chip on his shoulder. And there has been this buoyant vibe, this focused vibe, and a pragmatic vibe to the 49ers offseason. We talked about Purdy's contract at length over the course of the past several weeks. He compromised. So did the 49ers. Business 101. They met halfway so that there wouldn't be a mess this offseason, so that, like men, everybody could roll up their sleeves and get to work. There have been situations with the 49ers recently at other positions with other contracts where stuff wasn't resolved nearly as quickly, and it had an adverse effect on this football team. That wasn't the case with Brock Purdy's deal. There was a trust. There was a dedication to attaining a win-win. And I think it's fair to say that the 49ers and Purdy have found that. And now we are all lucky enough to be able to sit back and be able to see the potential rewards. And, one of the potential rewards already came via this throw from Brock Purdy to DeMarcus Robinson, the vet. Just a veteran presence DeMarcus has brought to this receiver room. It doesn't even look like he's trying that hard, and I mean that in a very complimentary way. He just knows how to move out on the field. You could tell that he's picked up the playbook very quickly, and Brock Purdy trusts him. And that's what it's all about right now. Purdy needs to develop as much rapport as possible with this receiver room. All right, there's your 49ers quarterback update. Go check out the San Francisco Standard. Talked about Trent Williams, Purdy, Mac Jones. That's all in the description. We'll toss it into the comments section. You can guess where I'm at right now. You probably won't guess right. I'm in transit as we speak. That's why I'm in a hotel room. But everybody, thanks for watching. You go check out your Exter wallets. They do a great job. We will talk to you all very soon. Oh, hit the sub button. Bye.